Hey everyone. All right, so today I want to do a how-to for the Braemar Stone. I'm going to run through it as if we are all beginners, from how I hold the stone, positioning and into the throw, sort of like I would if I was running a clinic. So we're going to jump right into that. First thing I want to go over is how do you hold the stone. So this is my open stone, but same rules apply. What I don't like to see is the hand flat on the stone, where the whole palm is holding the stone. That really limits my ability to give a little flick at the end of the throw, which we'll talk about a little bit later. What I like to see instead is there to be a gap here, right? You see my thumb kind of supporting here. Pressure is right here on this part of my hand. I guess it'd be the balls of your feet, the balls of your hand. I don't know what you want to call it. And I curve my hand a little bit. So I put the pressure right there, support with my thumb, there's this gap, and that's how I hold the stone. And I try to do this with every size stone, bigger stones, smaller stones. I always try to put the pressure right here and get that gap in there. It's just gonna give me a better push at the end of my throw. All right, as far as where to tuck the stone, unlike the shot put, these are all different sizes, they're all different weights, they're gonna be different shapes. So it's really hard for me to say like, oh, you gotta tuck this way or tuck back here or tuck there. Lots of times you're just trying to tuck it wherever it's gonna fit. So for this stone, get that gap. And I find, kind of putting it right in here works pretty well. Right? So you end up with this high elbow kind of position. With my heavier Braemar stone, I find that it's way more comfortable, down here. So I still have my elbow kind of up. It's not quite as high as with the other stone. And it's just the way the stone is shaped. It's where it fits. It's where it's comfortable. So what I will say about tucking it is, while you don't have to worry about always putting it on your chin or always putting it behind your ear, a couple things I do find very consistent. The most important one is you want to make sure that wherever you tuck that, you're putting yourself in a position so that when you push, your thumb is down. Right? You don't want to have your elbow so low that when you push, your hand's coming straight up like this. You want to make sure you can push that thumb's down, whether your elbow's higher or down here, we can still get that thumb down position. So try to tuck the stone in a place where we can keep that thumb down. Now we have our hold on the stone, right? Pressure on the balls. We have this gap here. We have it tucked in a way so that when we throw, we can keep that thumb down. Next, I want to go over how to actually throw it. When you're throwing the stone, it is a push, right? It is a straight on push. All right, don't think of it like a baseball throw, where you're kind of letting your elbow come forward and you're throwing it like that. You're gonna end up really hurting your shoulder that way. You're just gonna tear yourself apart. It's not gonna go as far. You also don't want to let that elbow drop too far and you're gonna shoot it like a basketball. All right, what we want is a push, just like a piston. We're just going straight forward. But at the end of that push, we want to flick with our hands. That's one of the main reasons that we're pushing through the balls of our hand here. Because once you have that gap, you get a good flick. All right, I know this doesn't seem like much, but I guarantee you it adds distance. I will go over a couple rules for the Braemar Stone. You're gonna come up here to the trig, that's this wooden block here. Lots of times you'll see some painted lines on the ground, about 4.5 feet wide, 7.5 feet long or so. For Braemar, that doesn't really matter because our feet aren't allowed to move. There's no run up at all. So we're gonna plant our feet behind the trig, and as long as we are behind it, not off to the side or anything like that, we should be good. A note, once you release the stone, you are allowed to move your feet to keep balance or whatever, but if you step over that trig, no throw. All right, they won't measure it. Some judges will let you pick your front foot up as long as it goes straight up and straight down. You can't kind of like rock back and go, rock backwards and shoot yourself forward, but some judges will let you pick your foot up, come straight back down. Others won't. Best thing to do is just ask. just make sure you know what your judge is expecting, because judges can be a little bit different about that. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about setup. First thing is foot placement. You want to get as close to the trig as you can. The closer you are to out there, the farther they're going to measure it. You don't want to stand way back here and leave that extra 1.5 feet of room, because they're only going to measure to the trig. All right, so once we have our foot up by the board, we want to get into a good starting position. Now, what I like to do is you take the foot that'll be your back foot. If your right hand throw, it'll be your right foot. You heel to toe and you step back so that your right foot is slightly ahead of that back foot. If you have your feet in a straight line and you try to turn and your hips forward, it's going to be really hard to push that hip forward, and it's going to put you in a really off balance position. But just having that little bit of offset, that heel to toe, is going to allow you to push that hip forward. You're going to be a lot more stable in this position than if your feet were in a straight line. All right, so you're going to come back here. You want your back foot, you want that heel up. Don't try to drive off your heel. Get up on that toe, and you want that foot facing 90 degrees from where you're throwing. All right, you don't want to have it facing backwards, because it's going to make it really hard to turn, and you don't want to have it facing too far forwards to start, because then you're not going to be able to come back into a good starting position. So you want it facing 90 degrees from where you're throwing, up on that toe, offset. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to separate our shoulders from our hips. What that means is we're going to leave our hips facing 90 degrees, facing forward from where we're standing, and we're going to bring our shoulders to face the back. Now, your hips are going to turn a little bit, that's fine, but we want our hips to be facing about 90 degrees from where we're throwing. We want our shoulders facing about 180 degrees from where we're throwing. Once you're here, you want to make sure that we're keeping about 75% of our weight on that back foot. You want to be in a position where you can easily lift that front foot forward off the ground. You don't need to be able to just stand there forever, but you should be in a position where you can come up. And this is going to be your starting position. We're ready to start the throw. So our heels to toe, offset. We're going to separate our hips from our shoulders. You're going to put weight on that back foot, and this is where we're going to start our throw from. All right, so when we are throwing, this next thing I'm about to tell you might be the most important thing in Highland Games throwing, period. This first motion. You want to push your hip forward first. You want that hip to turn first, and let your shoulders kind of drag behind. Keep that separation, and because getting that hip forward, you're going to have a lot more power being able to push through like that than if your hips and your shoulders come together. All right, so we're in the starting position. Hips come through first. Hips come through first. You see my knee kind of rotates in as well. Once our hips rotate, we're going to have an active left hand. You're going to slap it up, and you're going to pull it back to get a good block. And once you pull it, that left side should stop, and your right side is going to push past the left, and you're going to finish the throw. So, starting position, hips, slap, pull, push is going to be our throw. All right, so I'm going to show you kind of a nice, easy throw. Foot, heel to toe. All right. Remember, get that gap in there. Tuck it in. Pressure on the balls of the hand. Put our weight on that back foot. Separate your shoulders and hips. And then hips, slap, pull, push. Wanted to show you guys a few examples of actual throws. So I have this one slowed down here. You see I get that setup, you got that gap in the hands, tuck it, separate the hips from the shoulders. You see that right hip come through, slap, pull, push. That right hip coming through isn't quite as smooth as I'd like it to be, but I'm trying to over exaggerate it so you guys can really see what's going on in the throw. On this next angle, notice the setup is largely the same. I try to keep that consistent, so I'm setting up the same every single time, just getting in those good habits. You see those feet coming offset, the heel to the toe, separate. In this one, I want you to really see that active left arm. See that slap, pull, and the push out into the field. And on this last angle, I hope you can get a good view of the right coming past the left after you block. So after you slap and pull, the left side should stop and the right should push past it. So you see the slap, the pull, and then the right side coming past the left. All right, so wrapping things up, that is how I throw the Braemar Stone. This is one of my favorite events, actually. If you guys have any questions, throw them down in the comments below. And if not, we'll see you next time.